Okay, so I love this quote. It says, "We are all unreliable narrators, not just in the way we tell our stories to others, but how we tell them to ourselves." Okay, so think about that quote for a minute. Okay, so I hope you have some type of a notebook or piece of paper. This is what we're going to do, the exercise I talked to you about. Okay, so are you a reliable narrator in your life? Let's talk about the internal story. So there is a story that we tell ourselves. Usually it's not something that we're communicating. Most of the time, our friends don't know, our clients for sure don't know, and maybe only the person very closest to us, like a significant other or a best friend, is who knows the internal story we're telling ourselves. And sometimes we keep it so close to the chest that nobody knows it but us. So I want to just ask these questions, and then we're going to talk about if it brings out any thoughts. So when we're talking about our internal story, what does your self-talk look like? I want you to kind of think about that. So that's the voices in your head, as they would say. What kind of an agent, a father, a mother, a friend, a partner are you in your head? And then, are you putting timelines on your success? So the reason why I put that last one, and then I want to ask you guys if you have any thoughts. So are you putting timelines on your success? An internal story that I notice that is very, very common that people tell themselves is a story of comparison, which is Agent A. We won't even throw out names. We're just going to say Agent A. They got their license the same year I got my license. And I went to the awards banquet and they're just doing so much more than me, right? That comparison. Usually it's somebody in our peer group for some reason, right? Either that person is maybe in a community group with us. Maybe they're in, like I said, like they were in the same Ignite class as me. So they got licensed at the same time. And we're just constantly comparing ourselves to other people. That is something that gets stuck in the internal story. And so when I say, are you putting timelines on it, goal-oriented timelines for a story, right? That is okay. It is great to say, okay, I want to sell 50 homes by my 3rd year. And through a coach or through a friend or a mentor, you're going to be talking about, how do I get there? I put the flag in the ground of what goal I had to accomplish. And now I just need to bridge the gap from where I am to where I want to go. Very healthy. Comparison, not as healthy, right? Because really, what does that benefit? Not a whole lot. So I want you to write this number down next to the word internal story. I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Are you telling a strong internal story? And I don't want you to misconceive the word strong for positive. It's more, use the word strong as constructive, right? So if I have really bad time blocking habits, I don't need to tell myself that I'm great at it. I also need to have more of an internal story about, it being constructive of how I can fix that, right? So the reason why I'm having you write a number down, and I'll just give you an example that I experienced this and it was very helpful. So a few years ago, I went to a family reunion for KW. And I was in a breakout session that Jay Papasan was leading. And he was talking about I believe this subject. It's funny how I don't even remember what the actual subject was of the breakout, but it was around having a balanced life, assessing the different areas of your life, right? Like your spirituality, your work, all of that, and putting a number next to it. And the reason why he said this is so powerful is it just calls out the truth. Like it puts a light to it, right? So if you put, and I'll just give you my example, I put a number that was lower than 5 next to finances, because if I really thought about like what I owned as far as assets, like debt that I had, like there was nothing to really be super excited about at that time. But then I will tell you, just that number, the word finances and a really low number, help me focus on how do I do little things every day to make that better? Do I need to change a few habits? Do I need to talk to somebody that's a professional that would help me navigate this more, right? So that's all I'm doing with this is the number, because we're not going to say, okay, everyone share their rating. This is for you to go, you're going to lean into a number. I know all of you probably just instinctively wrote a number down, and it's probably either kind of on the low side or it's very high, and that's fine. What thoughts or anything that has come up that you guys have thought from just even this conversation, or any questions?
So Kimber, I'll jump in.
Yes, please.
I know that instead of comparison for me, it's my own self-doubt. So when I'm picking a number, the internal story that I'm telling isn't based off of how I compare myself to others, but how I am willing to give myself an expectation for success. So I keep it low, where it's like I stay in the space of if I don't try, I don't fail. Horrible, negative way to think about it, I know. But that's just where my vulnerability comes in, of where I'm telling my internal story. So I love putting a number to it again to like just create awareness for where that story is at. But that was just another thing I thought of like, instead of comparison, it's the story I tell myself based on the level of success I think I'm capable of achieving.
I am so glad you shared that. And I get that whole, well, like I'm going to be safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Safe
Yep.
zone. Your internal story usually doesn't have anything to do with anyone else, right? So you've probably already had the aha of, well, why am I holding back with myself? Why not go all in on myself and start to reflect that to others, right?
Yep, 1000%.
Awesome. Anyone else have any thoughts on this page? That was a great one.
Hey, this is Johnny in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I am here because of my coach, who is
Okay.
Jordan Larson.
Yeah.
So, yeah, MAPS coach. So yeah, I think that this has been a big struggle for me over the years. This is my 3rd full year in real estate. My phone is blowing up. I'm turning it off. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
3rd full year in real estate, and I'm in a group of 345 agents in my office. And there's another Keller Williams office with 400. So there's 750 agents. So comparison was a big deal for me. And so I'm kind of growing through it. And so I think that this absolutely is a obstacle that I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah. And the nice thing about Keller Williams is we have so many things that help us be in the same space and collaborate and train and learn together.
Yes.
And if you're having a hard time with that, it also can make that even more obvious, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And
well, I was afraid to even come here.
To switch the thought process to being like, and how many more people do I have now to support me in the growth versus how many more people do I have to make me feel bad?
Right. Well, this particular office has been the most family-centric office. It's great. So
awesome.
Lots of support.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to jump over to external story. Okay. Again, are you a reliable narrator? Let's see. So I want you to answer these. You can either take a second to write them down or just ask yourself in your head, what is one thing you are most proud of in your business from last year? Did you accomplish something you had never done before? And what is something you could be intentional about in telling your story in 2023 that could create a domino effect in your business? So we talk about this in the One Thing book that's actually written by Jay Papasan, or co-authored by him. If you line up your dominoes, then when you push down one, the rest of the 1,000 fall, right? You've been very thoughtful in doing that. And if you don't, then you're just going to be running around pushing a few dominoes at a time, right? So that's the example. I just wanted to give context in case someone wasn't aware of that. So the reason I ask these questions is if I'm telling an effective external story, these are what I'm telling a story about right now, maybe even in December, but especially now, right? Like heading into the new year. Here's something that we did last year that we're proud of. Did I say share your production? No. I said, what's like something you're really proud of? I was able to help a family get into a home that they weren't thinking that they were going to be eligible homeowners. Huge win, right? Did you accomplish something you had never done before? That's the outlier, right? And I put this for the top producers in the room. It's just 1 year after the next, 50 deals, 52. Oh, last year was 49. And sometimes you kind of feel like you're chasing the same number and you're always talking about the same number and you can't get that plateau, right? So I just need you to block that out. What's something you did that you never have done before? Like, forget those things, triple down on these new things, right? Because most likely they were big things. They weren't just little things. And then this is more that, like, think about what stronger story you can build in 2023. What's something you could be intentional about next year? So that when we're having these same, thought-provoking questions at the end of next year, you're like, I'm going to be able to tell a really strong story for that. So same exercise, external story, and write a number. So here's the thing. Obviously, if those top two, you haven't really told anybody about that, then it's maybe you're thinking, okay, I haven't told the strong external story. I don't necessarily want you to always equate it to social media, right? Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, this is turning into a social media class. I told her I only wanted a mindset class. It's not a social media class. What I would say is that where is the attention of the people you want to do business with? And if the answer is on social media, then I am going to turn it into a social media thing, right? Because that's where you learn about information. So that's also where people learn about you. So the big, if you remember anything, it's don't be a secret agent and don't sit here again internally and evaluate what justifies being okay to tell people that you did it. Because if you didn't tell anybody, I've asked agents this question before, how many people know you're an agent, right? At that moment, I want to get out of the business. I'm like, okay, well, how many people know that you're an agent? Does everyone in your sphere of influence know that you're an agent? No. Okay, well then cool. We still have work to do before we can quit, right? Any thoughts on external story? This is usually where people aren't as great because it seems like bragging and we're worried. So, one thing I just wanted to answer, Carrie. So if not on social, how else are we sharing our story and networking? I know Carrie personally, so I'm just going to point her out as an actual example. So I feel like I can answer this a little bit better. When you are intentional about networking, you are telling your story. So with Carrie, for example, she asked the question, so I get permission to put her on the spot, right? She is very intentional in her kids' lives and in school and in PTA, right? She is there. She is helpful. She is strong. She knows a lot about business, and she is present in the people's lives around her. That is an example of you telling a story. So now that Carrie goes, oh, well, I just had an aha that I'm telling my story. So then in what way can you tell that even better? How can I be more intentional in those spaces I'm already showing up as a strong leader, right? If I'm coaching my kids' basketball team, I am a strong leader in that moment. What's an opportunity for me to level that up even more? I hope that answered your question, or if you have any thoughts about that, but that's how I would put that.
Hey, Kimber, I'm jumping in again.
Yeah, please do.
I was given the amazing tidbit several years ago, and it started with a question. The question was, can I go through every single person I know and remember what they do for a living and what their spouse does for a living? If I can't do that, then there's a very good chance that someone doesn't know what I do or doesn't remember all the time. So even though I feel like I can be so loud and feel like I'm talking about myself a ton, which I'm trying to get better at with being brave and telling my story, even though I feel like I'm exhausted from just talking about myself to other people, it's a very small portion of their life that they're hearing about or from me. So it's just a great example of, if I can't remember everyone else's spouse's occupations, they most likely don't remember mine.
And you stand out so much in my mind when you even ask me, like, how's Dylan doing? I saw that she was sick last week, right? And I'm like, wow,
Right.
you remembered my daughter's name?
Exactly.
That's pretty impressive. Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts on external story? So we've rated ourselves. We have a number. It's just a number. We just have it on a piece of paper now, right? Okay, so moving on. So I'm just going to say this is a word in my organization that we're not really allowed to say. So if you're an agent and you've taken bold, you are not allowed to say but. You say and, right? So if you've been around a Keller Williams agent long enough, you'll hear and, because it's not necessarily natural. So what's the most lethal word you can say in regards to telling your story, or just overall with this whole conversation? So the word is, oh, well, where did it go? Let's go back. Oh, there we go. Assume. Who uses that word? I'm trying so hard lately not to use it. But yeah, assume. So have you ever said, I assumed they knew. I assumed they'll call me. And then when they don't, or you see that they're like, the sign in the yard is not yours, you're like, oh, well, we talked about doing, like, I was going to be their agent. I assumed they were going to call me. Make this word uncomfortable for you would be my advice, because this word is where we're going to miss out on a lot of opportunity. It happens a lot. Okay. So this is a Gary Keller quote, and I love it. I believe he was probably addressing our agent base at one of either our family reunions or mega camps. But his quote is, if people beat us, meaning, right, like let's say another agent is doing more transactions than us, right, at a different brand, it is because they did a better job at telling the story. So I love that that was from Gary Keller. If it had been from anybody and I found that quote, I would put it on here. But that's the way that we're not going to get that listing, right? That's the way that we're not going to get more business. is if someone else is doing a better job telling their story. The statistics of someone saying that they would use their agent again, and the statistics of a client actually using their agent again is staggering. And I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm going to get probably within a percentage or two. 86% say they would use their agent again, and 15% actually do. The only reason that is because we just don't tell our story. We don't. If we're just, again, assuming they're going to call us, they remember how great it was, right? So that's a pretty big gap. Okay. So I want to just tell you a quick story. This is a personal story, but it made me realize that I was doing this kind of in my own business and in my own life. So we had a really, really great month. And I was talking to my MAPS coach, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. We did this and this and this, and listing out all of these things, right? And he's my coach. He's supposed to like respond immediately with, you are an amazing human being. No. His response was, who knows that? So think about anything great that you've done, right? If the immediate response isn't, you're amazing, that's fine. And who knows? And I was like, well, I don't know, like the leadership team knows, like we're really jazzed up about it. And he's like, that is a pretty big thing. You need to tell, and he told me, I need to tell the president of the company. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I said, well, no, I mean, they see all the numbers, like they see the reports of how great every office is doing. Like, who cares? They'll reach out, assume. And he said, and I quote, do you think they're just sitting there waiting for a story? And I was like, no, they're busy, right? Put your client in that same seat. Do you think they're just sitting there waiting for their agent to call? No, right? Harvey, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate what you're saying. I'm thinking about how to draw the line between talking too much about yourself, telling that external story when you say who needs to hear it, and I guess what are you saying to make sure that they hear? What are you doing to make sure that people hear your story? So drawing the line between talking too much about yourself versus providing value added information, content, market analysis, et cetera. Just wondering your thoughts.
Perfect. So I think that's in like 1 or 2 slides. We are going to cover like the nitty gritty on that. So great question.
Thank you.
Yes, but please raise your hand again if it doesn't clarify when we get to that. Okay, so these are just questions I want you to think about. Knowing that story, me telling you that as an example. So what is your story and who needs to hear it? And who knows your value proposition? Who knows what you can do for them? And if you've told them before, when's the last time you told them? And this is the rhetorical question of the day. But is your opportunity bigger if more people know who you are and what you can do for them? Like, we know it's yes. That's a coach question where you're like, okay, fine, I get it. I have more opportunity if I tell my story more. Okay, so how we tell our story is just as, if not more important than the actual story. So here is why it's important. So all of us, I checked, right? I don't think anybody's AI notes are on here. So all of us are human beings. And so how we process information is usually over time as we learn things. It's themed, right? when we have themes of things, it starts to attach to our brains more. If subjects build on each other, right? Like if we start delivering patterns, if we get patterns of information, that will help. And the number one thing is consistency. Consistency helps teach and tell a story better than really anything else, in my opinion. So the most effective way to tell a story is doing that. So when you're talking about just even something as like social media or even an event, right? Like I gave that, I love that question that Carrie asked. Asking that question almost made me realize that there are people that are, like Carrie is very extroverted. So she is going to be very excited about being in front of more people and sharing that story. And yet social media is a great option for those that get just a little bit more exhausted by the in-person around a lot of people all the time experience, right? The same thing applies though, whether it's in digital marketing or whether it's in networking. Over time, are you building a relationship with them? Are you all over the place? Like one day you're talking about this, the next day you're over here and they're like, wait, I'm not following, right? Have you ever heard that? I'm not following. And then did you go, this is why I say consistency is number one. Did you say, I went to family reunion? It's usually family reunion with me. And I am like so excited and I'm going to change the world. And I go and like execute 30 days of the strongest social media strategy you've ever seen. And then you never hear from me again. Like my social media goes dark. It's super active for 30 days. And then I don't post anything ever again. Right. So that's my suggestion, is just starting where it's more feasible, right? So if you go to a breakout session at family reunion and they tell you you need to be doing 5 posts a week and you're like, well, I'm not even doing one. Well, if you can consistently do one, then start with that. But the consistency is more important than doing whatever somebody told you to do. And then the most effective way to hear your story. So those are 2 parts. How we tell it is one thing. How people receive it is another thing. So how do people want to hear that? And I just say, you are a good gauge for what your clients want. I know because we all are human beings, we're all different, but most likely if you ask yourself, do you want to read a 2-page handout about how awesome things are right now with the market or how hard it is? Or do you want to watch a less than 3-minute video? Or do you want like to break it up in 60-second videos? I'm going to pick, like, give me a little piece, give me 60 seconds of this, and then give me another 60 seconds tomorrow. And depending on the subject, that might even be a strategy to build on each other. Meaning I'm going to give them a little bit today, and then maybe I'll give them a little bit tomorrow. I mean, there's obviously ways in which that's going to apply, but then you kind of have like the full breakdown. And then are you telling the story differently? So you aren't on a mission to do it differently. That's another thing too, is that there's a lot of proven out there. And that's what's amazing about being an agent at KW, is usually in our market centers and in our area, and it's already all laid out. It's already all laid out, right? And so the goal is not to be like, okay, well, this person's doing this, I need to do something different, so I'm going to go completely, quote unquote, reinvent the wheel, right? You're just on a mission to stand out. Mind share is everything. And I will just tell you, because I know there's always, I actually love when someone has an objection in a class, because it's an opportunity for me to teach more people. But when someone raises their hand, right? Like, let's say we're talking about a conversation I have a lot with agents is sending marketing materials, emails, 36 touch, right? And we're having that conversation. And there's always somebody that's like, well, emails are not going to get me a certain amount of deals, right? And I kind of agree with you, right? It's an email. Who cares, right? And what's most important is that your name is showing up in someone's space every 13 days to remind them, hey, it's me. So you're consistent. So over time, they're not going to forget you. And you're going to be in that 15% of people that rehire their agent. You're going to be top of mind. You're going to be proximity, right? Yes, I love when it's more educational, informational, higher open rate, right? Like I do focus on that. I don't think that we should be sending whatever. But at the end of the day, it's not the email that's going to change anyone's life or make you have more business. It's the fact of the strategy behind it. So if you have something that replaces the email, right? If you come to one of my classes and I tell you to send 26 emails a year and you don't send 26, you send 12, but you have an intentional other touch system, then I'm going to be fine with that, right? It's just like mind share is everything. And this is part of our story. Okay, so we are going to have a conversation about like the hows, right? We're going to break that down now. Sorry, I was just checking time. So I'm giving you an example of when a house is for sale. I have a listing and I'm listing this house, putting a sign in the yard, right? So what do we all do? We usually grab some type of graphic somewhere. We plug in the front photo. Sometimes we don't even put it in a graphic. We just put the first listing photo in our Instagram and say, this house is for sale. You should buy it. It's awesome, right? So what does that look like? That's example A. What does it look like if every time that you list a house, you have a property preview booklet that's 12 pages, right? It's just like kind of walks you through the house on paper. But then you put that into some type of a flip book. So then it's easily able to be viewed online. You use some of these images for stories, for posts. You share the MLS link, right? Or from your KW site on your social, on like a link tree that has links, your websites, other places. And then you also email your database that you have permission to market to. Hey, here's Valletta Way. So is there more opportunity for me telling my story this way versus like, hey, didn't you see that post? And what does this look like to me as a listing agent? If I say, this is what I do on every listing, right? So I wish we had time to be like, here's how you do that. Here's all the details, but I'm just showing you like an example of if I'm saying what's an effective way to tell a story when I'm marketing a listing, this would be an example. Okay, so this is like, I'm breaking it down even more. So is your story interesting? Okay. So I just want to show you two different ways you can say something. So on the left is an example of a graphic you would make. Here's 10 signs it's actually your dream home. Okay, cute, yay, social media. So what am I going to put in the caption? So the way most agents do, which is just like, I'm trying to interrupt interest, right? Which is just like, hey, like, listen to me. I can't wait to help you find your dream home. Here's what we do best at ABC team, right? We've all seen it 100 times. So what if instead I say 10 signs it's actually your dream home, our foolproof checklist from over 100 sales last year. So here's what I did differently with the exact same thing. I talked about them, not me. Are people more likely to listen to me if I'm relating it to them? I added value. I didn't just provide information. I showed them expertise. I didn't tell them, I am so great. I am so great, right? I think someone already brought that up. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to brag. I don't want to brag. I just like to sell real estate. And I know I sell a lot, but like, I don't want anyone to know. I don't want them to think that I'm like doing this for money. Oh, by the way, we are, right? But we showed them our expertise. We sold 100 homes last year. Here's 10 signs we know it's your dream home. Follow us along as we tell this story. And then we solved a problem. That's a really big thing, right? I mean, we're going to do that once we're hired as well, but solving a problem is going to get our story heard a lot quicker. Okay, so here's like the nuts and bolts. So how we start telling our story, day one, we're not great at it. I'm just going to say, I'm Kimber, I'm not great at it. How do I form a story? Because I sold 3 homes last year. So I did a post that it was a great year in real estate, or, you know, my first year, yay. But then like, what now? So we're just going to form a story around content pillars. And I'm keeping it pretty simple. You're going to have 4. So at the top are the pillars and below are the questions or statements that I'm going to make about these to help you realize why that's important. So your first pillar is personal, which is like that you have a cat and you really like to ski. And I know those things about you. And you make really good, like goodies at Christmas. I just know all this about you, right? So if I'm telling a personal story consistently on my social, did this make it easier for people to know, like, and trust me? It is, right? We feel more comfortable around people that we know. That's like the fundamentals of building a relationship, right? Is built on trust. So if we are just never showing them our cards, like, how are they going to show us theirs? So think about that. Second is local tips, right? And that's I know the good ways to take the 405 or what times of day, or like, these are the things going on in our area. This just establishes you are the person they come to with questions. And as an agent, and I'm sure you've heard this strategy before, I know, what's our friend's name? Tom Ferry. They're big about this, like getting in a Facebook group and establishing yourself as you're the one that knows people or can connect you to people. That's a very strong job of a real estate agent. You're the person they come to with questions. And then eventually they're the person that they come to with all those types of questions, right? Including real estate. Engagement. So this pillar is really meant solely for, I am going to get a response, right? You've probably heard of that term MOFR, make offer for immediate response. It's that same thing. I'm going to post maybe one of those stories that ask for like voting on something, like, do you think I should cut my hair? 87% say yes. However many, 13% say no. Really, the only purpose of that pillar is like, get people to respond, get people to talk about it. And then real estate tips. This is just like Harvey said, it's the market update stuff. It is let me navigate you through like what this looks like when you're buying for the first time. All of those things establishes you are the person to come to with real estate questions. Straightforward, easy. If I buy an Airbnb, what in this area am I going to cash flow on it? I need to be able to know the answer, right? Those kind of things. So just going through these content pillars, does that help make it a little bit easier in your head as the story you need to tell? Does anyone have any questions or thoughts? This is like the money slide.
Yes, hi, I'm Rena. So the content pillars is material that you can use, but not all at the same time, right? It's like every time you show one piece of it, so just to establish connection and to make people trust you.
That's a great question. So how I'm going to implement these content pillars, the easiest way is looking at a 30-day window and even just creating a content calendar of when am I going to share something personal versus local tips versus engagement versus real estate, right? So I have those 4 pillars. And if I map it out, not only will I do it, but I also am very, I'm just going to say strategic, right? Because if we're reactive, this is the example of being proactive about telling your story. Reactive is today I have extra time and I feel like sharing 5 things that I saw in the last week on real estate. But then 2 days later, I'm on vacation. So you're not going to hear a word from me. That's when you start to not be consistent. So part of the strategy is the calendar. So I appreciate you asking that.
Yes.
That was a good question. Anyone else have questions about this one?
I do.
Yeah.
Hey, have you got the MOFR for a smart plan that we can use? Remember they mentioned that recent thing?
Oh yeah, we can probably talk about that offline, just because it's a little bit different subject of this.
Kind of.
But yeah, MOFR as far as smart plans, all of that. Yeah.
And
We're
the
just kind of talking
content, you're talking about the,
what'd you say?
you're talking about the content. You're talking about the content.
Almost like
of the
how to
MOFR.
tell this story. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, offline?
Yeah.
What, text me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Just tell me what you're looking for.
MOFR, smart plans.
Okay. Text it to me.
Okay.
Thanks. John's in one of my offices. Okay. So I just wanted to show you a quick example of here's how we can tell our story now, right? Over on the left, this is just an example of something that we've created at a brokerage level that just says, here's how Keller Williams outperforms, a view from the top. On the left side, you've got KW specific awards. On the right side, these are more local awards. These are closer to the state of Utah, right? Like our production base here. We have got best of state for the last 4 years. We have more top 500 realtors than any other brand. We're also #1 in market share, right? So I'm going to use something like this. And my only suggestion, because I know we have people from all over the country, lean into your office's statistics and, you know, obviously your own. And that's why I broke this out by new agent and seasoned agent. In a new agent world, you still have a really big story to tell. You can tell your market center story. You can tell your team story, right? I just joined a team. We closed 150 transactions last year. I joined in October, so it wasn't necessarily me, but you know, you can, that's why you are in business with high level people and top level names, right? To do that. And then also this is always my push for agents, regardless of what production level, start building your brand. I think people always associate brand with logo and they just go, well, I don't really need a logo yet. You can tell a brand story with, you can tell a story without having a logo. The logo helps me easily identify, oh, that's the person telling the story. Pretend my camera is off right now and I am talking and there's no name on Zoom that says who I am. Somebody that knows me is going to say, gosh, that sounds like Kimber, right? And then when my face pops up, they go, oh, that is Kimber. It's the same thing. Your brand, if it has a story, people will start to recognize, right? Like how you tell a story, the structure of it, maybe the subjects of it. And then the logo or any type of thing like that, right? I see Harvey has a logo behind him. That's just going to help me associate this strong story you've been telling with you, because now I have brand awareness. So you can tell a story without a logo. I'm just calling that out because sometimes people go, I don't have a logo, and then they stop right there. just like freeze. And then
Can I ask a
see
quick
the
question?
agent just tell your own story. Just you've been doing this a while. Tell that story.
May I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are about the point at which our own production numbers are good enough to brag about. So is it 25 units? Is it 15 units? Is it 50 units? And I know that it might be a silly question, but I feel good about where I'm at with my production. I don't know if it's brag worthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think that's why, like, all of the structure that we've talked about up to this point, it kind of brings you to the point where you go, gosh, it's not really about the number. That slide where I said, like, hey, I can help you buy a home, or here's the top 10 reasons this is your dream home.
Mhm.
Our foolproof checklist from over 100 sales last year, right? So if I had just said in that example of that agent, I did 100 sales, cool. It's maybe I would say you feel it looks like you're bragging, right? And if I tell it the other way, if I tell it in a more effective way, and I answer the what's in it for them, then there's not a limit. I don't think that there's a number you can put on that. I think at 3 deals, you can say, well, what of those 3 deals? Ask yourself one of those questions at the beginning. What did I do last year that I had never done before? I sold a higher price point home than I ever did. So I can tell the story of I'm in the luxury space now. I have to sell another one to like claim it, but I'm not necessarily, I would, if I was paralyzed by this in the internal story, I would say, well, it was just one house and it was like a really close friend. And so it's not going to happen again. And right. But if I just go all in on that story, because I did it and I could do it again and have a strong external story, then most likely I am going to sell another luxury home this year. I might even sell 3. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think it's just like how you tell it is the most important thing, more than the actual story. I said that earlier too. So there's not a number. It's just, how do I tell that the best that means something to someone else and not just to me?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And then I just showed you a screenshot of this graphic. I taught this class in December, so it applied a little bit more, but I'm just going to give you the example because I think you'll relate. So in the end of the year, right, people do a lot of reviews, and very common for agents to just throw a picture of every house that they sold, right? Or throw in numbers, or here's what we did. And I think that's great. This isn't me saying that that's not. I'm just saying, now that we've talked about all of the details, what makes the pie that is the story, would it be more effective if I just tell people, here are the lessons I learned, here are the wins that we had as a team, here are the goals I have for next year, how can I help you with yours? Now I've opened myself up so they actually know more about me. And now I'm asking, hey, can I help you with yours? That's a very strong touch point. Or I could have just said 2022 in review, like, here's the 20 homes we sold. I'm giving you that an example to say it's not that one was bad. It's that, is this one going to go further and reach more people and be more effective? Okay, so I'm reading, Jordan said, our logo is a tree and we're rooted. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so that is a perfect example of, like, basically your logo now brings your why into it, and it's so much easier to tell your story. And then it's honestly easier to live your story. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. What other questions, or actually, what are some ahas or things that you guys have on your list to accomplish or to do? things that maybe you're going to do differently? Let's
Kimber,
get at least 2. Yeah, Katrina.
my favorite point that you made is to make it more about them, because I feel like as a brand new agent, all I'm trying to do is create credibility.
Mhm.
So I don't have numbers to back me up. I don't have, you know, a lot of experience. And so if I'm turning the content around to focus on my clients and their needs, then not only will I build credibility naturally, but then I don't have to be in my head about what people know about my numbers or know about the back end. They are only caring that they're getting out of it what they need, which is really what we're all about. It shouldn't be about showboating for us. It should be about stepping up for our clients. So that was probably my favorite takeaway. Thank you for all you did.
I love that. And I will just tell you, because I know you, Katrina, based on what you just said, that would not be something that I would have assumed at, you know, first impression, knowing you, because your confidence is, you come off very confident and very capable. And so if your internal story is on the lower end, just know that for someone you just met in the last couple of months, they did not think that. So.
Well, thank you so much. My internal story is definitely worse than my external one.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I appreciate that confidence boost, and I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah.
Kimber. This is
Yes.
Toshma. I'm here in Atlanta,
Oh, hello.
and there are a couple of things I wanted to share, and then an observation. What was very helpful for me today were the 4 pillars. It boiled it down where I could look at a 30-day calendar and actually make it a system, which is what we want, and then automate it. So that really helped a lot to make those posts a lot more tangible. And I'm not just trying to create something from scratch. So that was great.
Good.
One of the things someone mentioned early on about feeling like they were bragging and thinking of other ways that you can tell your story without telling your story. Something happened in my last client event that I didn't expect to happen, but now I'm going to add it more intentionally, and that's having pretty much like a client review. So everyone else tells your story for you. So basically, I had a vision board party for friends and clients as my second annual. And so I just had people say their name and say how they knew me. And I was specific. I said, client, past client, future client, or friend, or, you know, family. But what it ended up being was the people that were clients, they were like, I'm a repeat client. I'm 3 times repeat. Toshma did this. She did. And it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that. I just wanted you to say, you know, you're a repeat client. And what was interesting is that I ended up getting 3 referrals out of that event space from friends that brought friends. So it was no selling.
Uh-oh. Did she go away? Well, an aha I had from her comment that she made was, that was a good example, like Carrie said, like, how do you tell your story, not just on social media, getting intentional about an event. And then again, even being more intentional about like an asking for review or a really great photo op place. I mean, that is always probably going to get more business and more referrals than, hey, guess what? I'm great. I promise you. Which is what I feel like you're doing sometimes, you know, but.
Kimber,
Oh,
I'd
well,
like to
if she
add-
jumps back on, I'll add her back in, but. Johnny, did you have a
Yeah,
comment?
I do. I want to say that I think it was so helpful. Everything you said was just so helpful and like kind of just felt like it was for me. I know there's a bunch of people on there, but it was very helpful for like where I am at my place and kind of trying to grow. But I think consistency was the one word that I heard, and just kind of be very, you know, be intentional, very, very strategic, and go slow, but be consistent. So that's kind of my goal, is just to be consistent in what I do.
Good. Me too. And it's hard, you know, you almost have to remind yourself, like, if I'm going to go all in on something, am I going to be able to continue to sustain it? And it doesn't mean everything we do, we have to do forever. But if something we decide to do, we know if we do for 6 months is going to move the needle, then we need to be able to commit to doing it for 6 months.
That's
and be
right.
able to see if there's results from it, right? Usually
Correct.
we just quit too early at the end of the day. So, well, thank you so much for everyone's comments. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully it's warmer where you are, Carrie. I know it's not warmer where you are, so sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, talk to you guys later.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.